All right, what is going on, Cincinnati? What's going on, Nashville? What is going on, the US of A? What's going on, America? It is the Tipping Point Morning Show. Yours truly, Mr. Just As Joe, as well as my brother from another mother, brother John Yah. How you doing there, family?
Peace, brother. How you doing, man? I'm absolutely fabulous this morning with all this snow. My doors got stuck. I couldn't get in my car this morning. Then I get down here, and then my surge of my lights are out. That's why I'm in this room here with actually no heading. The lights are out above me, but all the power works and everything. But other than that, brother, I'm great. How about yourself?
Man, I'm fantastic. I'm fantastic. Just enjoying yet another week, and you know, just another great day here in America, or some people like to call it America KKK. All that type of stuff. But it's one of the freest countries in the world that gives us the ability to do all type of things, man. The things that we do in America is amazing in comparison. I seen a lady get locked up in Russia because she was protesting, man. You can't do that. You can't just lock people up for protesting here in America, man. It's a beautiful thing to be able to do that, man. People need to stop playing and act like you ain't got no freedom, man. We got freedom. You just gotta use it. And that Constitution, right? You've been harping on that Constitution, using that, and as I see, it won a couple weeks ago in the Supreme Court. And we get to battle that. We get to battle stuff out. We ain't gotta just bow down and obey. We get to battle stuff out. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of what people need to know. We need to know our rights. We need to know what rights do we have, specifically during this time of the pandemic, and they're pushing the vaccines. They're pushing the government trampling on your rights and stepping on you, right? And so this is something that we rely on. And I'm very familiar with how the Constitution works. I think I've dealt with the Constitution several times in the criminal proceedings, where the state done something wrong and the Constitution prevailed and set a brother free. And I think that's very important. We need to understand how it works. But however, next week, we're possibly going to have Attorney Carl Price on the show next week. He is running for office. He's running for Jefferson County Attorney General. So that's going to be an awesome talk, because we will be talking about the Constitution and our rights.
Hey, I'm excited about that. That's a good brother. Love him, man. What he stands for seems to be quite dope. He seems pro-choice on mass. So I'm happy about that, and supporting someone that is pro-choice on this whole thing, mass vaccine, all that stuff. So I'm anxious to have that conversation. So that'll be great. Can't wait till next week. Now this week, today, we've got a pretty awesome show. And I just want to let everybody know, remember, 502-776-1350. You can call in, and 502-776-1350. Now, I'm getting word that we did not get our clearance to use the N-word today, so we can't do that on the radio portion of the show. I'm just getting word on that. We sent the email accordingly, but just hadn't got a response just yet. But with that in mind, we'll proceed in the after show, folks. We're gonna blaze that word up, because we're gonna talk about the difference between the N word, the Nigga, the Nigger, as well as Negus, which is Negus. And that is, I believe, that's more so where the word originated, which has a totally different definition and meaning behind it. But we're going to talk about that in the after show. So if you guys are so inclined You can jump on YouTube and look up the Tipping Point Morning Show. You can jump on Facebook and look up the Tipping Point Radio Show or the Tipping Point Show on Facebook, and find us there, and you'll be able to join in on that conversation at the 10 o'clock hour in the after show. But we have a special guest calling in today, right, Jaya?
Yes, we do. We have Professor Kaba Hiawatha calling in today. He's actually in town for a lecture. He's been here for a few days now, dealing with some lectures that's going on at Roots 101. Advise anyone that if you don't know this brother, you should get to know this brother. You have seen him in Hidden Colors and several other projects that he has been working on. He's also a narrative of the documentary Out of Darkness. He's a scholar, he's a teacher, he's a professor, and he stands on the shoulders of people like Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben. So he's definitely a historian. This is a master teacher that we're having here to talk. And actually, we had already planned this word, the N word, and then just so happens we get this brother on the show so we can talk about the etymology of the word, where the word comes from, the originality of the word. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was, why won't the word go away? In other words, is that some people say that we use this word as a word of endurance, and I wonder where it's coming from and how come it just won't fade away. One of the things that I kind of understood was the ancestral meaning of the word, meaning that our ancestors don't lie in the ground. Our ancestors lie in our bones, right? This is why they can dig you up 1,000 years from now and tell where you're from. It's in your bones. And somehow I'm wondering if somehow spiritually that word is rooted in us, meaning that it's not offensive unless it comes with a rope being hanging from a tree and being called that word. But as far as we're calling ourselves that word, it has a more of a kingship meaning. Talk about its word that is used for endurance. Hey, my end. What's up, my end? We use those terms, which is quite understanding. But while we don't see it offensive amongst each other, I don't even find the word offensive at all, even though I understand the history and who used it. But here's what's very interesting about Europeans, and this is the fact. Europeans have never came up with nothing new. They only taken what we have already had, and they take it and they whip it up and then they give it back to us. The same concept of the Jesus, Haru, Mary, Isis, right? If you literally let's look at symbolism. All these symbolism, we've already had these symbolisms. They're not new. They just grab these symbolisms and they whip it up and they put it back on us like a spell, right? And so let's look at this symbol called the swastika. And you will get offended if you see the swastika, but actually that symbol was already in Kemet on the walls in the pyramids, right? So it's not new. It's something that Europeans just taken, whipped it up, changed it back around, and poof, give it back to us. So this word Nigger, Niger, Nigga, or Negus was already here before the Europeans even came out the caves and knew what the word meant, right? So they whip it up, add some stuff to it, and poof, they put it on us, and now here we are upset, and we're mad at a word that actually we will use in royalty, right? This is word, no matter how you twist the word around, even if you use the word Playa Negra, which is a black sand beach, you're still going to be talking about something
the Spanish version of it.
Exactly. Right. And so here we need to be educated on the word and understand the etymology, where it comes from. But again, there's something deeply in our bones that resonate with this word, whether we're saying the dialect a little right or adding a little dialect to it, making it a little wrong. It still refers to something of our past. Yeah. And it's rooted in there. And that's kind of,
Well, it's interesting, and check the chat when you get a second, but it's interesting that we can, a teacher can, edify his use of the word by talking about the spelling difference and how he says it, right? But here on a radio station, I'm restricted of saying it at all, which is interesting, right? But nonetheless, when you really look at the word, do you think that we should, as a people, I mean, because here's my thoughts. I'm thinking being sold into slavery, you know, there was some of us involved, right? They probably said these over here are Negus men when they sold them. And so then that word just got carried on the whole time. Could that be where that originally came from? They heard it from us 402 years ago when they were grabbing them from Africa. They heard us calling us Negus or the Niger type of men, and then it got misconstrued into the way it's been used now. I mean, what you think about that?
It's a various. Again, I'm gonna tell you again, they didn't come up with nothing new. They just came up with something that was already here. Let me ask you a question. I'm hearing music in my ear. Is there music playing somewhere?
Yeah, we'll that's part of the application. But hold on one second. But you know, when we really look at this, then hearing some of this, should it be a word that should be banned altogether?
You know, I don't think you can ban something that has been already uploaded into our default program in our subconscious mind. You can understand it more, but the part is some people has a disdain feeling about it because again it's launched into their subconscious mind and it's a hated word. It's no different than the word, you know, let me first say this. Words has vibration, but the vibration to the word is based on what you think of the word, not the word itself. You make sense? Because you can call the woman a B word, and we know what that B word means, and it can make her mad, upset, and angry, right? Mm-hmm. Because of her program of what she thinks of the word from the time she was born. But let's take that word and let's take that dialect and let's put it in another language, and that person is called, the woman is called a B word, but it means queen. Right, so when she's growing up, she hears queen and abundance and beautiful, right, from that B word because of the dialect or because of the language. Where she'll grow up saying, "Hey, I'm a B," you know what? And she'll be happy when you call her B. But the other side, with the other vibration to it, meaning that based on what they were told, they see it as negative. So we got to understand the balance. It's not the word itself; it's what you were told what the word means. That you have uploaded, and when you hear the word, you'll come with a negative turn or a fault pattern. Why? Because again, that's your default program of what you think of the word, and that creates the vibration inside yourself.
Absolutely. The like strawberries with stems and strawberries without. Your programming says eat it without the stems, but the healthier way to eat it would be with the stems. So
correct. So one of the things to understand is that somebody's always making money off the word, right? Because it triggers our emotions, just the same as the word black, right? And so if you resonate with being black, and every time you hear officer kill black person killed again by another officer, all these things will agitate you because you attach yourself to the word black, right? And so now whatever you add to that word, when someone uses it in a negative term, it can send a frequency in you and cause you to be upset. And somebody's getting paid off that. Somebody's betting that when that word is used over media, somebody's betting the fact that you're going to get upset, you're going to go buy something, you're going to be mad about something, you're going to boycott something just because
you're going to turn some music up a little louder because of that word.
Exactly. So we got to understand how this works because again, word is magic. Word does have spells, and it's not really a hidden thing. It's really right in your face, but it's based upon what you think and what you were told. And what I like to ask people is that when you think of the word wealth, when you think of the word rich, what do you think? When you think of yourself as being wealthy or rich, does that kind of make you cringe? If so, then that could be the problem why you're not able to gain wealth. This could be the problem that you're blocking the universe from giving you wealth because of some uploaded information that you already have about the word when the word arises. We have to really look inside ourselves and say, what does that word mean to you? And how does it mess with your vibration, yourself?
Exactly. You know, some people, you say the word wealth and they think of something negative. They think of wealthy preachers that they feel shouldn't have access to all that wealth. They think of wealthy people and how those wealthy people should, you know, come and fix up the hood and pay to help everybody out, you know, because they're so wealthy, you know. And so when you have that negative connotation of the word wealth, then I definitely see how that works. Now, when you start talking about words and how important words are, there was something that you post this past week that was kind of awesome, and it spoke about even the simplicity of the birthday song, or you know, I saw something you posted where it spoke about how people, you know, I think it was singing happy birthday or something, but how it came from somewhere else or something like that. I don't know if you remember that.
This was dealing with spells. When you're sitting there and you're making a wish, you're teaching a child to make a wish and blow out a candle, you're making a spell. What you're doing is you're summoning it. You're trying to summon something to come into your space, right? And we take this as a boo-hoo thing, but it's really simple. When you dial 911, and Brother Leonard really came in and really spoke on this, and I'm speaking from Brother Leonard's comment. When you sit and call 911 and you're saying someone breaking your house, aren't you casting a spell to summons the police, right? You're not going to summons the plumber. Plumber ain't going to show up at your door. So, you know, we got to understand how words work and what we're using the word for, because it summons things. So if you say to yourself, I'm broke, well, you summon is that you are broke. If you say I ain't got no money and you got one dime in your pocket, you say you ain't got no money, by the end of the day, that little one dime is going to find its way through your pocket through a little hole, and by the end of the day, you won't have that dime because you done already put it out there to the universe that you broke. You don't have any money. We got to understand how this looks in ourselves. You don't have to have any money, and you should see yourself as wealthy. You should see yourself as abundant because you have the ability to pull in the money. And that's the problem. When I ask people, when you think of yourself as being rich, what do you think? Some people don't even like the feeling of the thought because they have a disdain feeling towards those who are wealthy and rich. Think about that. Just like you said, somebody would think what they want to do with their money. But when you think of the word itself, it could be why you're blockage, because even in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talked about the psychology of why rich people stay rich no matter how dumb they are, and why poor people stay poor no matter how intelligent they are. Why is that? Why do basketball players come out of playing ball making millions of dollars, and in 5 years after their retirement, they're broke again? It has something to do with their default program, that they were born in poverty, and that's all they saw was poverty. So poverty is a normacy to them, right? Just the same as wealthy people. So somehow we got to change the way we think of things and the way we see things to come out of the condition that we're in.
Well, I definitely think that that's where exposure comes into play. You know, the ability to see other things, to then know other things exist. You know, I was fortunate when I was younger. You know, I can remember my church youth group. You know, we would go to. I remember they took us to the Shenandoah Valley. You know, this was I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, but they took us to the Shenandoah Valley, and there was this couple that owned a big mansion with a bunch of property on it. And it was probably 30 of us there. These people had a basketball gym out there. They had we were doing all type of stuff, tubing in the Shenandoah River, and you know, 30 of us could fit in this mansion. And you know, seeing stuff like that for me allowed me to see that, oh, there's other things out there than, you know, this hood that I see all the time. There's other things out there. So, you know, I think exposure is so important. Now we have our special guest on the line, and Brother John, I'm gonna let you go ahead and introduce our special guest there, brother.
This is Professor Kaba Hiawatha, and definitely, as I said before, he has been in several documentaries. One that most of you probably are aware of, Hidden Colors. He's a scholar, he's a teacher, he's an author. very well known. And listen, check this out. We need to start giving our heroes, our people, their escalades or their flowers now, opposed to waiting till they're died and then they're dead and then we talk about them. So, welcome, brother. How you doing? How you doing, brother? Brother Professor Kaba.
I am doing excellent. Thank you, brother, for this invitation.
Oh man, thank you for being on. It's an honor, actually. I think I met you a few years ago when you came to Louisville. I think Layla brought you here. Layla and Patar. There's that Layla again. Layla's always doing great stuff, isn't she? But that's when I met you, and we had a nice little talk on the side. But brother, you are here. You are here today in Louisville. You've been here for a few days. You are here to give a lecture at Roots 101. Is that correct?
Please, can you say that again, brother? We broke up for a moment.
We broke up for a minute. Okay, so you are here to give a lecture at Roots 101, correct?
Yeah. Well, I'm here for 3 different events that are happening at Roots 101, African American Museum. We were brought in through the Revolutionary Black Panther Party to be part of a weekend program, Black Power Week, and we are here to this evening will be the banquet. But yesterday we had a phenomenal panel discussion and art and spoken word activity, and the day before that, it was an opening just to discuss with the community where do we go from here in terms of what we face, not just here in Louisville, Kentucky, but across the country, where my experiences have brought us. So we've had dynamic days here. We have been treated royally as normal, as you said, when Sister Laila brought me here for the educational program. We have had a phenomenal time. The people, the hospitality, the information that was shared, the people that we've met, has just been as usual for Louisville. Coming from New York, they talk about Southern hospitality, and you went beyond your expectations. So I want to thank the Louisville community for all the great times that we've had thus far. So I'm happy to be here, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to the community and let them know what we're doing.
Great. Let me ask you a question. And this is sort of, I know that, like I said, you're a historian. You're very well. I've got a lot of respect for you. What do you see the people going right now during this pandemic, and how it's important to know who we were before today?
My brother, and to the family that I'm speaking to, peoples of African descent have lived in the pandemic for over 400 years. We have lived under these types of conditions since we got to these shores. What I've explained to people who have asked me my opinion, I say, be concerned, but don't be panicked. What we have to do is understand the conditions that we find ourselves in and do the very best that we can to weather this storm in order for, on the other side, when everything subsides, as it will do, because that's the other thing, because I understand the anticipation, the frustration, the pain. We have lost a number of good people in our families, in our businesses, and it is a time for reflection, but concern. But not just for now, but for the future, because this virus, which did exist, is nothing new. Viruses have existed since the beginning of human life. In fact, I could take you back to organic life. From the moment that life started in the waters on this earth, there has always been a virus. And what we've got to do is learn how to deal with these and learn from them. And on the other side of every virus, we need to pick up our bag and keep on keeping on. Because that's what we have done historically. This is nothing new. When When you study history, you understand viruses have plagued the earth for a very long time. But now that we are at a point now where there's some breathing room, that we can now begin to look at certain things around us, we have to let our children know it's going to be all right. But we just got to keep on keeping on. We have to keep doing what we've been doing. We have to excel at what we do. But we just have to understand what it is that we're experiencing.
Do you think that during this time of this virus, that this is the time that this will be the time to discover the newness in ourselves? I noticed that we talk about here a lot on the show that during the pandemic, a lot of our people came up with new ideals and started new businesses. Do you think that's something that this pandemic is pushing our people towards? And how do you see that in us growing?
Please, brother, could you, because we're breaking up just slightly, could you please repeat what you said?
Okay, so during the pandemic, there was a lot of businesses that started. A lot of our people started new businesses because they were in certain conditions that made them think and use their minds to come out of. Do you see this virus as something that's part of a blessing for some of us who are able to see it differently and able to come through it?
You know, that's an interesting question because I've seen it myself. This was 2020. When you stop, no pun intended, clear sight. And there have been people who have been doing work and being paid a nominal amount of money. When this pandemic hit and everything shut down, it made everybody think about, well, what am I going to do now? And people began to search for their talent, for their gift, how they could make money even though there were no jobs, so to speak. People began to realize, you know something, I'm making more money doing what I'm doing now than when I was working at whatever job they may have had.
Hey, Brother Hiawatha, this is Mr. Just As Joe, and again, thank you for coming on the show with us this morning. You said something amazing earlier. You said something about being able to keeping on. My question to you is, what is it that keeps you going? What is it that after all these years, and in a sense, we wake up and we still see some things that make us say, man, why is this still happening in 2020, or why is this still happening in 2021? What is it that gets you up and gets you going in the morning to help you keeping on?
The same thing that had our ancestors on the plantation get up every morning. And it is the African spiritual understanding that a prophet is not a psychic. It's just a good historian. I know how things happened in the past, which allows me to interpret what's happening in the present, and then allows me to predict what's going to happen in the future. And I'm telling us as a people, we're going to be all right. Dr. Martin Luther King was correct the night before he was assassinated, when he told us we are going to get to the promised land. We have difficult days ahead. He was right. But we as a people, we'll get to the promised land. That's what gets me up every morning, knowing that it's going to be all right. But we have a lot that we have to do. There are a lot of insecurities and fears and pain that the human family is feeling. And unfortunately, they're taking it out on each other, unfortunately, sometimes. But we'll look back on this, our what I want to call our ascendant, not descendant, the ascendant. Because as an educator in South Central Bronx, my entire career, 31 years, having my own biological children, the one thing that I have realized when I studied every African society, not just in Africa, not just around the world, but here in America, even to this day. Our job as the adult population is to make our children better than us, not like us, better than us, to advance the society in a way that they can take it to the next level. To go back to the question that was asked before, many of us have found things in us that we didn't know before. In sports, it's called fourth quarter drills. When you've expended every bit of energy that you think you have, when you've done everything that you think you could do, you reach deep inside your soul and you pull out something that even you didn't know existed. That's what gets me up every morning. It's going to be all right. No matter what we're going through, our ancestors, what they went through, if I dream that I'm having it hard, I wake up and apologize, realizing what our ancestors went through, realizing that they may never be free in their lifetime. But if they just kept on keeping on, if they just lived another day, that they would give birth to people that would live another day, that would give birth to us. We have no right to stop now. We have no right to think that it ain't going to work. We've had enough people that have come before us who have taught us and have told us, keep on keeping on. It ain't over till we win. That's what gets me up every morning. Realizing, as a historian, we've been through this before. And we not only got through it, but we excelled and became better because of it. We will become better because of this. There will be casualties because in all sacrifice, there is the innocent that paid a price for the guilty. And I understand that. And any one of us could be that innocent that pays the price. But in that sacrifice, another spirit is born that's going to make sure we make it. That's what gets me up every morning. And that's what got me up this morning to talk to y'all, to let your listeners understand that no matter what you see, no matter what you experience, we are going to get to the promised land because we have the DNA of the pyramid builders. We have the DNA of the plantation dwellers. We have the DNA of those who live in the projects, but we also have the DNA of those who will get to the promised land. Keep on keeping on. Don't let anything distract you from what we got to do. And what we got to do is raise a nation of viable, constructive citizens, not just of the world, but of every facet of our existence.
Now,
that's what got me up this morning.
And I mean, absolutely amazing. When you speak to that, especially bringing up Martin Luther King, not too long before he was assassinated, he spoke about wondering if he led his people into a burning building. When you think about that, you think of and then you think about the generation today, where their minds are at, how hard our ancestors had it even 100 years ago versus now. Are we headed in the right direction? I know you said we're going to the promised land, but are we taking some too many turns to get there?
Well, you know, the road to the promised land is long and winding. And there are also roads that we get off the promised land that we have to find our way back on. Everything we do, we're heading towards our destiny.
That's right.
No matter what turn you may take, no matter what you may do, this is it. When Dr. Martin Luther King said that, and I have seen that statement before, and I've heard him say that, I look at the metaphor a little bit differently because America has been a burning building ever since Europeans came and invaded this country and did what they did to the first people that were here. America has always been burning. He didn't lead us into a burning building. He was just trying to tell us, hey, this building is burning. We better get out. And everything that we're doing, no matter what we may see happening, and I understand it. I see it every day. I was with our children for 31 years, every day, almost every day of my life. For 31 years, I watched this happen. When I saw the culture and the arts, and this is what we spoke about last night as it relates to the art and the role that arts play in culture. Okay, I go back to the Motown sound. You know, one of the things that I speak to young people about, and remember, I'm in the Bronx in the 70s during the formation of hip-hop culture. I was there. I know what happened. I understand what was going on in black radio. In New York City, I'm speaking of, and I'm sure it was across the country the same way. Black radio was exploding. It was big. Black talk radio was exploding. It was big. That was new. And all of a sudden, we get the Motown sound. We've got all of these acts that are coming through the civil rights movement, the human rights movement with our brother Malcolm X, the formation of the Black Panther Party, and all of the other things that would come from that. We have the same thing going on right now. It's all part of the same development, but like all things, there are sacrifices that are being made. When people see the power, when the young brothers and sisters back in the day and with rap music, because the other thing is hip-hop is a culture. There are aspects of hip-hop. It's not just rap music. Rap music is the evocation. It's the voice of hip-hop. But you've got dress. You know, you've got food. You've got a number of things. Hip-hop culture came out of doo-wop. Doo-wop came out of bebop. Bebop came out of rhythm and blues. Rhythm and blues came out of blues, and blues came out of spiritual, and the spiritual came out of Africa. There is a long line of descent here. There is no interruptions in our culture. Yeah, we have our situations, and we will have to handle those situations. There are things we hear. There are things we see. The fact that we could put guns to each other's head, we're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to talk to our people about this. We're going to have to develop a relationship with our young people. There is no generation gap. And there are things that we have to understand. I've had a relationship with our young people in my entire life. From when I was young to when now I am in the position where I am speaking to the young people. I see them. I see what they're doing. And I know exactly how we got here. And we got here because many of us dropped the ball. We thought freedom was free. We thought we had arrived because we got a job. We didn't realize that freedom is a state of mind. And we have to teach that to our children. Because our children didn't create the words that we hear them say. They heard one of us saying those words. They know new words. They might spell it differently. We taught them that. So we as the adult population, looking back on what's happening, we have to ask ourselves, what role did we play in making this happen? And what can we do to improve it, to correct it, but most importantly, to extend ourselves out to each other and to bring that African Holy Ghost back so we can talk to our people to help them understand what we got to do. We have situations. I'm not speaking like it's all rosy and everything is all right. We have work that we have to do. It's just simple like that. Let's roll back our sleeves and get it done. And the first thing that we can do is just be hospitable to each other, respect each other, honor our women. Okay? Because nations ain't built on baby daddies. It takes commitment to build and see, I'm into dynasty. People build nations. Families build dynasties. And that's what made the Kush and the Kemetic, the Egyptian, the West African civilization so strong, because families came together. Families were the nucleus. And even on the plantation, we still had families. Even though that might not have been our biological daddy or our biological mother, every adult was a baba or a mama to every African on the plantation.
Mm.
We have work to do, family. There's no question. We have difficult days ahead. But he didn't lead us into a burning building. If anything, he told us, this building's on fire. And there's a couple things that we can do in order to make it better for us. What are we going to do? And that's what I ask our community. Understand your history. Because to me, people say, like children in particular say, well, brother, why is knowing my culture, why is knowing the past important? What purpose does it serve? Can I get a job? Will it pay my bills? And what I say is, think of history like a slingshot. You put a projectile in a slingshot and you pull it back. But the purpose for pulling it back is not to keep it back there. The whole purpose of a slingshot is to propel something in front of you. So the further back you go, here's science now. The further back you go that you pull that slingshot, the further in front of you you're going to propel that projectile. So let the projectile be your mind. Let me put your mind in this slingshot and pull you back. Because the further back in the past that I pull you, and by the way, I ain't pulling your mind back in the past to stay there. I ain't pulling your mind back there to stay in the pyramid age. I'm pulling your mind back there to take the technology of what built the pyramid and project it into the future. Because the genius that built the pyramid is the same genius that's going to build our future. You got to go back to the future. That's the purpose of history. When you know where you've been, you know where you are. When you know where you are, you know where you want to go. But most importantly, you figure out how you want to get there.
I mean, just deep as you speak, because there's all these visuals that come about as you speak, and so I definitely appreciate your teaching. Now, when you look at this, do you think, today's political climate, were we not black enough if we didn't vote for Joe Biden? As a people?
No. Malcolm X taught us, family, let's be very clear about politics. We ain't got no friends in politics. Black folk ain't got friends in politics. Politics ain't about people liking you. And again, I realize we as an African people have a desire as it relates to a people-people relationship. And I understand that. But when you look at politics, you have to put certain things out of the equation. And someone liking you ain't about that. Politics is transactional. What can you do for me? Okay? It ain't about I'm going to do this for you because I like you. Ain't nobody gave black folk the vote because they liked us. Nobody freed us because they liked us. They freed us because they had to. That's the bottom line. When you look at history, it was an economic decision. They weren't freeing Africans who were enslaved because they liked them and felt that slavery wasn't right. Because Abraham Lincoln said himself, if he could keep Africans enslaved and preserve the Union, he would do that. He said that in one of his speeches. People didn't do that because they liked us. They did it because of economics, because of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution that was on the rise in the late 1800s, because of what black people did in the invention that made the supply-demand relationship different. Nobody freed Africans because they liked us. Nobody's giving us the vote because they like us. They're doing it because they have to. But they're making it seem like they like us. so that we don't realize they're doing it because they ain't got no choice. We have done things in this country that has revolutionized this country. And most, if not everything that happens in the country, black folk are in the middle of it, just like this. But what's going on now in politics, this isn't about black folk. This is about the Hatfields and the McCoys. This is an internal battle amongst the European Americans that has existed since they were in the ice thousands of years ago. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We just happen to be in the middle of this fight right now. And look at what's happening. There is a consciousness in African people that's rising. And as it relates to President Biden, we don't forget his history. We don't forget where he came from. Come on. Politics, is a funny thing. Politics is governance. In Africa, there was a law that was called Ma'at amongst the Kemites, the Cushites, people we today call the Egyptians. I call them Kush Kamene. They had a law of governance that they named Ma'at, and she was female. This is where Lady Liberty comes from in terms of what we're looking at now with the scale. Her name was Ma'at, and they defined her as truth, justice, balance, harmony, order, arrangement. But my favorite characteristic of Ma'at is reciprocity. You shall reap what you sow. What go around, come around. And what is happening now is what has gone around is now coming around. And people are now reaping what they have sown. If you are born in violence, you will die in violence. And when I say die, I mean not just the physical death. I'm talking about a mental, spiritual, and soulful death. And what has happened in America, as I reflect on our brother Malcolm, and one of the most important things that he told us, which is one of the things that got him in a lot of hot water with the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, is when he said something that is as applicable today in 2022 as it was in 1965. Mm-hmm. Chickens have come home to roost. Mm. Look at Russia. Look at China. Look at America. Mm. Look at all around the world. Every place where violence and pain and torture has been sown, it is now being reaped. And the very same people that put it on black folk are now putting it on each other. We got to get ourselves together, family. So I don't care who you voted for. See, this is just another thing to have us fight amongst ourselves. I ain't fighting nobody. I don't care who you voted for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's just important for you to understand what governance is. Governance is harmony, balance, and justice. Reciprocity is what go around, come around. And if you in your heart really believe that you would reap what you sow, if you really believe that how you acted, if it was tremendously wonderful, you would get it back sevenfold. If it was tremendously horrible, you would get it back sevenfold. If you really believe that, if you really believe in that God that you talk about, you wouldn't act the way you act. It's obvious you don't practice what you preach.
Hmm. Let me ask you a question, Professor. It's very interesting. We talked about the mindsets of our people, and it varies. I hope you can hear me well. The mindset of our people varies from different I would like to call dimensions, whether we are Christian, Muslim, Moors, Hebrews, Catholic, Seventh-day Adventist, all these things that actually divide us. Would you say that one of the things that project our condition is our projection of ourselves, meaning that if we change how we view ourselves, meaning individual, the outer life will change. I somehow see that the Europeans use our energy and whatever we're reflecting to portray whatever they want to portray on us. So the people who are listening to you, there are those who, because of certain belief systems, certain things that are already programmed into their subconscious mind, won't hear you, and you're aware of that. You're aware that certain those of the same frequency will listen to you. How do you reach those of that same, who are not of your frequency? Do you try to reach out to them, or do you leave them where they are?
I attempt to just lay out a concept, and because I've worked with children many times, that is exactly the audience that I have been teaching to. And I thank my kindergarten children because I'm an early childhood teacher. I wanted to get them as babies, particularly as a black man. I realized the potency of a black man standing in front of the classroom, in front of 4 and 5-year-olds. As I went up, I've taught every grade. I've taught every subject throughout my career, including college. I taught college for 14 years while I was teaching elementary school, middle school, and high school. And I purposely did that to get the practice to understand how to develop curriculum and how to teach teachers how to teach our children. We come from many different varying backgrounds. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But again, I go back to our brother Malcolm X, who at 39 probably was on an intellectual and spiritual level of an elder that had lived many lives. And he said something real clear to me, to us. He said, they don't attack you because you're a Republican. They don't attack you because you're a Democrat or a Christian or a Muslim. They don't attack you because of the social club that you belong to. When all is said and done, they attack you because you're black. And each and every one of us knows this. But there is another pattern of behavior. Because when someone wishes to oppress you, they will give you a myth. You will start to believe the myth. And the third step is that you form the habit of believing the myth. And while it's the last that you formed, it's the hardest to get rid of. And that is, we have formed the habit of believing a sense of superiority in one people and a sense of inferiority in another. That's a myth. And we have got to understand who we are as a people. So when I present information and evidence to our community that the Twa Mbuti people, who we today derogatorily call the pygmies, were in America 90,000 years ago, that blew their mind. It is hard for us as a people to imagine the fact that there was a time on the earth where the only people that walked the planet were black. It's hard to believe. Sometimes it's hard to believe. Folk have a problem with that because they have never envisioned the fact that Mansa Musa, when I hear people talk about the fact that Western civilization is the greatest civilization that ever existed, that's not true. In fact, I'm going to give you a civilization that was greater than Western civilization 3 times over, but yet that wasn't always the greatest civilization. One of the greatest civilizations that existed within our thought process was the Malinki Empire. When Mansa Musa was so rich, he broke the World Bank because he gave out so much gold as he was going from Mali, West Africa, to Egypt for his Hajj. The Malinki Empire was one of the great civilizations to ever exist. But at the same time, there were great civilizations in Southern Africa, the Monomotapa Empire. You could go to Congo in Central Africa, great civilizations there. But not just that, you can come to America and you can see black people building pyramids in America. Now, does that blow your mind? Black folk, we have never envisioned in our mind that we have been so great. Yet the evidence is right in front of us, because look at what we did with hip-hop. Hip-hop is one of the greatest contributions in this modern world over the past 20 years. Black folk gave it to the world that came up out the streets of the United States of America. I was in the Bronx. My first year teaching, 1979, there was a song came on the air called Rapper's Delight. It was the first rap song to be played on mainstream radio.
That's right.
Okay? I remember that. I taught in a school down the block from where Kool Herc used to have his house party on Sedgwick Avenue. I walked the street and saw people break dancing. I lived the beginning of what we today call hip-hop. But hip-hop was only an extension of doo-wop, the Motown sound, Marvin Gaye. James Brown always did a rap on part 2. He always dubbed his music. You can go back to the Ink Spot. My parents' group called the Ink Spot. And you always had Kenny rapping in the song. When we was growing up and we wanted to talk to a young lady, we would say, "Can we rap to you?" That's where the word rap came from. This is nothing new. We as a people have to know our history. So when I talk to you about the slingshot, and I want to pull you back, I want to pull you back past hip-hop to doo-wop, but past doo-wop to bebop, past bebop to rhythm and blues. I want to pull you back into Africa to show you where you got those hairstyles from, where you got your clothing from. I'm talking about the clothing and hairstyles of today. You got that from Africa because that's deeply steeped in your genes. We bask in greatness.
Brother.
But because we have been told we come from nothing, we believe it.
Yes.
Because someone gave you a mix, and we formed a habit of believing that. I'm here to break the habit. Break your habit. Go cold turkey. Come to understand how great you are. Embrace your African Holy Ghost, your spirit, and realize that our ancestors are calling us to a better day. And if we listen, then we'll be in the promised land.
Brother. On that note right there, we are going to end the radio, WLOU 104.7 FM and 1350 AM. We're going to end that radio portion of the show on that note right there. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this powerful teaching that we just got. We will see you next week. Same place, same time, right here on WLOUonline.com. And I tell you what, if you're so inclined, join us on the Tipping Point Morning Show YouTube as we extend the after show right here with Professor Kamene. We'll see you next week. All right, folks, y'all know how we do. Give us a quick second. I believe we are getting the link out to the professor. I believe he's going to join us because I know I've got plenty more questions, but give us a second here as we regroup for.
Did you say you sent the link?
I did not.
Okay, I'm gonna send the link to Ahamara. I think she's with him. Let's see.
All right, so we'll have him on shortly here. Give us 1 second as we regroup, folks. All right.
You are listening to The Tipping Point Show with your host, Mr. Just Ask Joe, John Yeh. Right here on WLOU. Stream it live on Facebook and WLOUonline.com. And now, The Tipping Point Show.
Awesome show. Yeah, you know, they have a new option here where you can actually pick some music to play.
That's
in the
what
background.
it is. That's what's distracting. The music is distracting. That's what I was getting a text from. That the music playing in the background is kind of distracting from the listeners. I didn't
realize it was left on because it's, like I said, it's a new option here, and I'm just trying to play around with it and see what was what, but didn't realize it was left on. So I'm glad somebody said something about it. We did eliminate it at that point right there. They have a volume control as well, but that'll be something that we can play with in the future. But man, what a fantastic show. I mean, I could sit and listen to that brother. I mean, just powerful stuff. And you know, one of the questions I have is, how do we get our people out of this matrix mindset that I believe most of us are in? It was one question. And then I wanted to make sure that we had him speak to Kari Muhammad's thoughts of, you know, who the professor respects currently as productive leaders in our community today. And, you know, then at the same time, I have another question about, I wonder, are we too nice as a people, or have we been too nice as a people, too inviting, too welcoming to any and everyone? You know, it's those are some of my thoughts when I look at history. You know, have we been too nice, you know, to allow other cultures, other people? You know, we talk about rap. We did give rap to the world, and the world, I mean, they've taken it and they have manipulated it and turned it into something damn near unrecognizable today versus in the 70s when Rapper's Delight came out, right? Totally different than some doo-wop. You know, I saw something someone posted recently talking about R&B. What do you miss about hip hop and R&B? And someone said, well, you know, years ago, the men, when they sang, they weren't afraid to sing about Black women as queens and the love that they had for women versus the lust that they have now. You know, I mean, and even in speaking about some of that, you know, some of the singers from way back when, you know, even when they spoke about lust and this, there was more of an understanding that I'm talking about my woman, the one the one woman that I have, that I'm with, or the one who I'm in alignment with. That was what the song was about. It wasn't about trying to go out and see how many you can, you know, beat down. You know what I mean? Whereas that's where the music goes today, when you look at that. So, you know, I'm gonna read some of these comments here, man, and some good stuff. Shout out to Brother Frank Stoner. Generational curses tells our minds we should keep doing broke shit. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, people, the sins of the father, the sins of the mother, people do not realize, you know, things that are passed down. What you did as you were raising your kids has everything to do with your kids now in this day and age. Powerful stuff there. We got Baba Mustafa. He says, that's the problem, Mr. Just Ask Joe. Nobody is sitting down to figure out where we are going as a people. And again, shout out to Ahamara Mathis, the general there. We appreciate her. Let's see here. Let's see. Frank Stoner says, hey, I do understand your frustration, brother. Hey, there's a lot of solutions out there, and this show offers plenty of solutions every week. We just have to trust each other. Absolutely. Let's see. And because I think we're about to bring on the professor. He's backstage right now. And let's see. Baba Mustafa says, I care for who you voted for, and anybody who voted to keep that racist in power on any level has to be viewed as high. I don't know how to enunciate that, but and is an enemy to me and our people. Y'all might have to help me on that one. My Black Power card does not extend that far. HYKSOS. You might have to put the enunciation in there, brother. But yeah, let's look here. Let's see. The professor, I thought, had jumped in there. Maybe shoot him a text message and tell him to come back on, because I saw him pop up as a guest. Let's see. Hick Sos. So appreciate that. Yet another teacher there. Layla, shout out to you, sis. Hick Sos. Hick Sos. I feel Asian when I say that. Hick Sos. Let's see. All right, good stuff there. But, you know, I mean, when you think about this show and, you know, what the professor does in general, you know, how do you feel about, you know, speaking this knowledge or the need to get this knowledge out more so to our people? Do you think it's the lack of our understanding of our past that truly is, you know, has something to do or an underlying cause for the problems we have today?
No, I actually attack all this because, you know, there's books. People don't read today, number one. Ain't nobody reading.
And that's one way to go back in time. You want a time machine, just read a book and you can go back in time and get all the knowledge you need.
Yeah, so, you know, people ain't reading today. And what we have is what is called a microwave life. Everybody wants things fast. We'll go and pull out our phone and speak into Google and ask for something direct. And we just say, okay, what does this mean? And it tells us. We won't actually go read a book about it to really study it, because why? It's too much time and sometimes it's too boring. So where are we today? We are in an era today where what controls us is television, movies, and music, which are all frequencies, right? And so behavior changes. No, the frequency of the music back then were different. In fact, if you look at music from before hip hop, blues, or soul music, then you have blues, and then you know, each one had a different era. I know my father wasn't really a fan of the soul music when it hit, okay, R&B, because he was a blues guy, right? And so, you know, later he began to grab onto it because the blues have a different dialect. Blues had a different message than R&B, than rap. Now what happens is that you will have those who creep inside of our music. You mentioned something that's very interesting when you say, are we too nice? You see, as a people, far as you can go, when these people first came out the cave, we were like, who are they? Let's help them out. Let's clean them up. Let's teach them how to bathe because they smell real bad. Let's teach them how to behave because they were screwing their daughters and stuff. Let's teach them how to eat, right? Let's teach them how to be more civilized, right? So that's nice, but that's who we are as a people. The problem is that we don't understand their nature. And so now we give them, it's very interesting. Do you know
hold on, with what you're saying, man, the thought that came to my mind is that we were so nice to think that if we give them all that stuff that you just said, that they will return niceness back to us, as opposed to understanding their nature, that they will steal it, rape it, pillage it, and then somehow regurgitate it back to us and make us think totally different.
Well, correct. And in history, it happened over and over again. It wasn't the first time they came. It wasn't the first time they lived into the dark age and we pulled them out and we helped them out. But if we pay attention to our behavior, I give you an example. Take a white woman that I remember seeing a video. She's over in Africa, some country in Africa, where she's doing the hip hop dance. She's doing a dance. And the Africans are dancing with her. But Black people were so fascinated with this white woman's dance that we forget it's ours. So we celebrate secondary and we don't celebrate the primary. Look at the story of Jesus. I can go on and on to where we have taken something. Look at Eminem. Look at how many Black people will call Eminem the greatest rapper. Well, how? He's not the primary. He's secondary. So how did he beat the primary of those who were before him and we call them great? See, we become fascinated with them, so much so that we forget who we are. And I think that plays a role, and particularly the music that's played on the radio, the movies that we're watching, and the news that we're watching. All these things feed us information that goes against us. And then it becomes a part of our default program. And then we live this life through this default program, which is the habit mind, the habitual mind. And then we behave the way we behave, and we wonder why are we in this condition? Because we don't want to address the default program, but where we get this information from of who we are and how we see ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And welcome, Professor, to the after show here.
Greetings, brother.
Hotep family.
Absolutely. Now I'm gonna post this comment real quick, and but I want to speak to it. I'm gonna read it, and I think it's important that, because here on our show we focus on all views. We don't try to buffer anyone's views. We don't try to play nice. So I'm gonna post this, read it, and I'm gonna speak to it real quick as well. But Baba Mustafa says, a lot of pretty things have been said here, and much of what was said was flawed. I caution everyone to research any information they do not understand, no matter who the speaker. Too many people listen to the preacher and do not know what he is speaking about or where his knowledge comes from. Now, one thing I will always say is that one thing that we do on this show is tell people, don't just listen to us and take that information and run with it. Go research it for yourself. You need to. That's the problem in this day and age. Like Layla was saying, how she teaches her students, she had to teach them how to use their smartphones for research and knowledge instead of entertainment. You've got a supercomputer in your hand. You can go research, and you can go as far back as uploaded microfiche. Folks, you can research and you can go look this information up yourself. And we always encourage people to do that, as opposed to simply just listening to what we say or the things that you hear on this show. So with that in mind, welcome, Professor. I was loving some of the, all of what you said. I was enjoying it. One of the biggest questions that I just asked here, and Brother John was speaking to it, and it was, have we been too nice and too inviting as a people to allow others into our circle
without real reciprocation. And, Brother John spoke to that and, spoke about how, we being nice or what have you, yet not understanding their nature or our oppressor's nature with that niceness, as we taught them a lot of civilized things. But what's your thoughts on that when you look at where we are today, where we've come from? I would say that our people are more asleep today than they were, many years ago. But with that in mind, what's your thoughts on the idea of, have we been too nice to allow others in our circle?
Well, please, if I may go back to what the comment Baba had said earlier about one of the things I always tell our people is, I don't want you to believe me. I think that has been the problem, is that when someone speaks, many times we are in the process of believing or not believing what they said. I tell people who listen to whatever I may say, I'm not telling you this for you to believe me. I'm simply trying to make you think. Research for yourself. Don't believe a word I say. I ask you not to believe a word I say, because not just that, but if you do the research and you approach the topic from your perspective, there's a good chance you're going to find out something that I may not know myself. And then you can teach me. Education, the one thing that I have embraced about education is that the more I learn how much more I have to learn. It's a lifelong process. We are under the impression that we have a concept known as after school, or we have a vacation from school. But the reality is, life is school. Life exists pre-womb to post-tomb. School is every day of your life, every moment of your life. You're on a search for your gifts. And one of the fallacies of, I think, the educational system and why we're in the position we're in today is because everybody banks on the fact, believe me, what I'm saying is true. What I'm saying to people is, what I am saying is as accurate as my research has brought me. But I am sure that future generations will make what I'm saying more accurate. Just like the references to the early Americans being Africans, it was Professor Dr. Ivan Van Sertima who wrote the book They Came Before Columbus, who inspired Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book The First Americans Were Africans. Dr. Imhotep took Dr. Van Sertima's work to the next level. And I am sure that future generations will take Dr. Imhotep's work to the next level. It's a process. Don't believe the people that are coming. Don't believe me. Just allow me to make you think, to take you outside of the box, because that's what will break the habit of you believing the myth. When you think, that's all. And the beauty of education, at least from my perspective, is that when educators come to a table, they put their information on the table, and every educator looks at it and they devour it and they turn it upside down and they research it and they develop things. And at the end, everybody's information is brought together as one piece of information. We ain't fighting here. We're not arguing. Intellect don't argue. Intellect grows. Emotion argues. And if emotion argues, that means that you're trying to get me to believe you. In other words, my own personal integrity is on the line. My integrity is not on the line when I talk as an educator. My research is. And my research can be made more accurate. There are things that can be found out that will make it truer. And so we've got to change the way in which education is. Education comes from the word educe, to draw out of the individual, not to put in. I've never taught my students in a way that I was giving them something that they didn't already have. The only thing I've ever really done is made people aware to facilitate the process of thinking, to allow them to know they already knew this. How could I actually teach somebody something they didn't already know? I can't put nothing in somebody's head. It had to already been in your head. What I did is that I just happened to tickle it and made you aware that it was there. Now, so that's what I have to say in terms of that. Also, in terms of what I speak about, you can go to my website, Kamene.com. I got the information up there. The information is there. Go to Kamene.com. I do a webinar every Tuesday. You can go to my Instagram page, Kamene, and you can join in. You know, you can register to come to my webinar every Tuesday. Every first Sunday of the month, I do a webinar on my on my book Shabaka Stone, which is astronomy, African astronomy. And every third Friday, I do a webinar on the origins of the people in America. So when I talked about Africans on the American continent 90,000 years ago, I'll show you the evidence of it. Every third Friday of the month, I've got about 10 webinars, because I think we're getting it twisted. You know, we're calling ourselves all sorts of things. We're everything from Christian to Moor to Hebrew Israelite to African American to Negro to you know, the magic word. We're all that.
You can say it now. But
you see,
even now, even with what you're saying, they're adding in ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves.
Exactly. And also we have FBA, Foundational Black Americans. But my thing to you is, I don't care what you call yourself, as long as you realize that we're all related. I don't care what you are.
There you go.
I ain't got time to argue with the differences, because they're all really philosophical differences. Because when you get back to the spirit, each and every one of us got the African Holy Ghost up in us. So if I can talk to your African Holy Ghost, if I can talk to you God to God, then we're doing all right.
If you see yourself as a God, there you go, John.
That's it. Because my bottom line is, you are, each and every one of us is the creator having a human experience.
There you go.
Oh, it's okay. Hey, you know, this is so amazing, because I mean, you know, these are things, a lot of what you're saying are things that have been mentioned all over this show. Brother John Yah does a great job of bringing a lot of this, you know, information and intelligence to the table. So, you know, just hearing you say it again and reconfirming a lot of what has been taught here on this show is just absolutely awesome. So we appreciate that.
Well, look at the evidence, okay? Because, you know, Dr. David Imhotep once told me, he said, you know, it's not about truth and facts. Because the day before yesterday, when I arrived in Louisville, it was a clear day. That's the truth. And that's a fact. But yesterday, there was a serious snowstorm. That's the truth. And that's the fact. So the truth and fact the day before yesterday was not the truth and fact of yesterday. So truth and fact can change, but evidence never does. So I'm going after evidence that can describe and inscribe the reality of what it is that we are experiencing. But let me go back to the question that you asked. The words that we use can come from every different angle. So let me rearrange some words. It'll mean the same thing, but we need to rearrange the words. We as a Southern people, this is what Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop teaches us in his book, Civilization or Barbarism. He talks about the Northern and the Southern cradle that brought forward the two distinct groups of humans that came out of the African. The original is the African, the Twa Mbuti. The Twa Mbuti travel across the globe. And because of geographical and geological and climatological experiences, in order for them to survive, they had to begin to morph. And one of the characteristics of morphing, when you crossed over the Caucasus Mountains, which is like a mountain range that separates what we might call Russia, Georgia, and the southern lands. In order for the African who was melanated with very curly hair, thick nose, wide lips to survive, they had to go through a morphological change. But because of that ice age, that change also changed the way in which they thought. And I say to you this, imagine yesterday when the snowstorm, much worse than this, and it lasts for longer periods of time. Which means that you have to retreat into caves and put clothes on. And that your daily life system demands that for you to eat, you're in an absolute mode of survival. You will lie, you will steal, and you will cheat. You will kill your fellow humans in order to get food. And then after you kill them to get their food, you'll then eat them. So that the life system of the northern climate was one where the creator God was a jealous and angry God. It was a horrendous God that put that human through horrific situations. Whereas in the southern lands, where the fruits and the vegetables and the foods are abundant, there is a sense of sharing. You have so much, you share. And in sharing, you give to others those things that are really about creating a complementary way of living. But what happened when the ice melted? Give or take about 2000 BC or 4,000 years ago. And those people of the north who did all that they could to survive come back down, and they clash with the people of the southern lands. The people of the southern lands who have developed a way of living in the sun, of sharing, of loving each other, supporting each other. What happens when they meet these people? And vice versa. They have never met people that act like this. They have met people that don't do the right thing. I'm not saying just because you live in the sun, you're always doing the right thing. We had our little situation, but the basic mode of living and thought was different. So I'd like to look at it as that we're not, the word is, for me, it's not that we are too nice. It's that we're humane. We're humane beings who have come in contact with inhumane beings. And in so doing, this is the world that we have found. This is the world that we're living in, where there are people that don't know how to be honest. They don't know how to be truthful. They will lie, they will steal, and they will cheat. And evidence, look at what's going on right now, all around the world. Look at how they're acting. The evidence is here. They're right in your face. Ain't no conspiracy going on now. This ain't a conspiracy. Conspiracy gives you the impression, Dr. Amos Wilson says that conspiracy gives you the impression that they're doing it secretly. They're not doing it secretly. They're right in your face doing this. Trying to take back the vote. Trying to keep you from being able to survive, to pay your, to be able to buy food for your family. Taking back the little bit that many people have that are surviving and struggling. They're trying to take that. And so what happens when people who are humane come in contact with people who are inhumane? What do we do? How do we respond to that? So that's the question. And again, when you think of it, and as I heard brothers speak about hip hop and rap music came out of the streets of the black community. It told a story. We are storytellers. We are jeles. We are griots. We are historians that tell a story, be it love, struggle, life. We tell a story. And rap music came out of the struggles of the 50s and the 60s. Doo-wop did the same thing. It tells a story. So what we're experiencing as we move from one process to another is we have to learn. Well, let me put it to you like this. In hell has to learn how to act a little devilish sometimes. Because when you're an angel and you in hell, you are not going to survive acting angelic. However, don't forget your angelic nature. Because when you get up out of hell and you get back into heaven, the promised land, don't start acting devilish up in heaven.
Yeah.
Because ain't no room for devils in heaven, like there ain't no room for angels in hell.
Ain't nobody to save in hell.
I'm sorry?
No, I just said ain't nobody to save in hell.
That's why you're there. That's why you're there. And so we have to come to realizations as a people, what we're facing and who we're facing, and how to deal with who we're dealing with. We have been so used to the heaven of the southern lands, of the warmth of the sun. We are sun people. Can you imagine just the fruits and vegetables all around you? You didn't have to steal from nobody to survive. Nature was a loving nature. Your God, your creator, your perception of the creator was a loving creator that gave you everything you needed to survive. Can you imagine what it's like to live in a civilization where you feel safe, where you believe that your children are safe in the street, your grandma, grandpa is safe, that you will be able to eat tonight? You never worry about eating. You don't worry about clothing. You don't worry about a roof over your head. Do you know what you can create when you don't have to worry about surviving? Dr. Edwin Nichols, brilliant clinical psychiatrist, he talks about the concept of surviving and thriving. In life, survival means that you can meet your needs: food, clothing, shelter, safety. And that if a people can keep another people in survival mode all of their life, they'll never have to worry about those people, because those individuals will always be worried about the basics. But when a person gets all the basics, they then begin to thrive, which means that surviving is never a worry for you anymore. Now it's about you building with what you have. When you are thriving, you are thinking. When you are thinking, you are creating. When you are creative, you are independent. And you don't depend on anybody for anything. The purpose of Western civilization is to keep everybody in a survival mode, even their own people. This is the thing that I find most interesting. The ones that are being most devastated by the conditions we find ourselves in. Yes, people of African descent, people of Hispanic descent, people who are Muslim, all the people who are being attacked, we do suffer from certain situations. But the one thing that some of us don't is we understand our reality. Most of us. People of European descent don't understand one simple process, one simple concept. White supremacy is an oxymoron, because there's nothing supreme about being white. To me, the only thing that people of European descent ever created was the patent office and the Xerox machine. Because they took the world's inventions and put their name on it.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
What we're doing right now was created by black people.
Yes.
The cell phone, the World Wide Web, all of this was created by a black person. we know who Henrietta Lacks is? Do we understand that that woman died 70 years ago? But that her cells
are still alive.
And still alive, but not only that, but they're thriving. They're growing. They're not just surviving. They're growing in a way that no scientist can explain it. But I can. Melanin. Check this out, fam. They took Henrietta Lacks's cells into space. And they multiply quicker in space than they do on Earth. Do you know what that tells you about melanated people? You're a cosmic people. You're not an earthling. You're a starling. You're made of the essence of the sun. You are made of the energy of the sun. And that's why our ancestors call themselves children of the sun, because they knew that science. We don't know how great we are. The day we find out how great we really are, and I'm talking about each and every one of us in all the stations of our life. I'm talking about the brother or sister who waits for the light to turn red so they can go out with a cup and ask you for some money. I'm telling you, they great too. They are as great as anybody else, and they are to be respected as all of our people. If you are of African descent in America in 2022 and you still alive, I got nothing but respect for you. And I love you dearly and unconditionally, but I ain't got time to convert you. I want to talk to the people that are ready to make the move.
There you go.
Who are ready to get that educational background in order to understand that solar power is the future wealth of the planet.
Those who are in alignment. Now, quick question, Professor. When you speak to that and you say you want to talk to those, you know, who want to move forward, basically, right? Those who are in alignment, does that include people outside of melanated descent?
I am focused directly on my people, period. But I'm talking to everybody. I don't have time to get caught up in that because all humans are Africans. There is only one race on the planet, and that's the human race. That human race was conceived, born, nurtured, sustained, civilized in Africa. And after Africans got their show together in Africa, the Twa Mbuti of Central and South Africa, then they took their show on the road and peopled the planet. And because of climatological, geological reasons, that African morphed into all of the different peoples on the planet today. We have got to get what we perceive to be the evidence of what happened in history out there. Whoever embraces it, embraces it. But I'm focused on my people first. But I deny nothing to anybody. I am not going to get caught up in the same hate that destroyed the planet or that is destroying the planet. I'm just not going to think like that. I have had children of all different cultures in my classes, from kindergarten straight through college. And every one of my students I have honored as my student. I have been in classrooms with educators of European descent who have treated me in a way that is so horrendous and so horrible. I would never treat a student of another culture the way I have been treated by professors not of my culture. I respect education. And I don't think on that level. And it's too dangerous to think on that level. But at the same time, I'm Black first.
Absolutely.
There's something you said that resonated with me very deeply. You mentioned about the stress, talking about, I like to use the word, the stress hormones, or cortisol. when a people are under stress, they don't have time to graze. They don't have time to create nothing new. And I noticed even in my writings, I talk about my creativity came when I wasn't under stress. When you're under stress, you're just too busy worried about to survive. So you can't create nothing new, which is a very good key way of controlling a people who are the inventors of the world. And I talk a lot about it as a patent, visual patent owner, and own certain trademarks in my business, that the creativity in me, I noticed that even when I started reading about patents and where they came from, that we were the authors of everything. They were people who stole patents, and they were the ones who take an invention, and they enhanced it, but it actually came from someone melanated. I never believed that they were people that could create anything new. They could only copy what is already here. Now, when you're telling the people about the stress, people not understanding that even if you tie yourself to whatever it is you claim to be, if it is something earthly, those who control the media can control your emotions, and by putting images out there that you are attached to create the stress in you. So if you stress over being black, well, just all you got to do is turn on television and you're going to see somebody just killed a black person, a police officer. You're going to see the word black in there, and these are stress messages to tap into certain people. And then what happens, we remain in the same condition. We go march, we go riot, we tear shit up, and then we go right back to our normal ways. That's one thing. The other thing is that a lot of times, and this is a little note, but a lot of times when we come to messages, lectures, then we go right back home to the same condition that we were never even given the power to understand our creative self. I say this to everyone, and I said it plenty of times, that everyone has a genius level of talent to offer to humanity. Have you discovered it yet? If you have not discovered it, then you are walking in circles, because once you discover it, it's part of your passion. It is something that is God-like, no one can give you. But if you are under stress, you will never discover that God-like self in you. And I think this is one of the reasons why we're so caught up in the televisions. We're so caught up into the music that's playing today on the radio. We're so caught up, and I'm wondering why we in this condition and we can't get out of this condition. We just had a great show, I think a couple of weeks ago, talking about marijuana and the effects of marijuana on the brain that blocks the ability to create. Blocking the ability, alcohol also blocking the ability to use that magnetic field in the brain, or the magnetic wave in the brain, to connect to the magnetic field out here, that you can create whatever you want. And whatever you create in your mind first is actually coming towards you. But if you are under stress, you ain't thinking about that. If you are smoking weed every day and you're trying to escape, if you're drinking alcohol every day, you're trying to escape, you remain in the same condition, which is a docile mind. And with a docile mind, you don't create nothing new. So you said something when you mentioned that stress thing. And I think that's one of the things we talk about a lot. We talk about the stress hormones that people go through, and how I identified is dealing with like a wildebeest or a deer that is running for their life. They ain't got time to graze in the grass. They ain't got time to eat and make love and have babies and procreate. They got to run. They only do this when they are not being chased. And I think this is the condition that we always chasing some shit. We always got to correct some shit. They'll say some shit and put it out there on the news, and there we go, emotionally attached to it, get upset, and then we come with the black power, let's do something about it. But yet, as an individual, we haven't developed ourselves to the point. And I say this often, and I'm going to give you that to answer that. I say this often, that there's this thing that we call collective, but we absent the individual. So if you have not approved yourself as an individual, you can't bring nothing to the collective but with your hand out, ready to see what you can take. Because individuals have yet to discover who they are individually outside of collectiveness. Your individual God self that you have within your own bones and your own cells and how they communicate. To where we are not even as a people able to tap into that source, of that genius source that we have, to bring about whatever it is our talent is to share with humanity. And I think one of the things that block us is what you just mentioned, just stress hormone that they keep us under. How can we get the people to understand just that point? Right now, we're under another stress. Every year, every few months, we're going to come with a new variant. Now they're going to push more shots on people. Now people worried about losing their jobs. Now people are under this stress of, now you took the shot. No, you didn't take the shot. You can't come over my house to have dinner with us. We're now gotten to the point where I just heard someone mention the other day about an auntie calling the hospital on someone else who's on their way to the hospital for a surgery. Then they tell that person that they've been around COVID people. Don't let them in. We done got to that point now. We're now to the point to where we're under so much stress, we're pointing the finger at each other now. We're saying, oh no, you took the shot. Oh no, I can't be with you. Oh no, have you not taken the shot? You can't come over here. I'm calling the cops on you now. We're at that level to where if they was to create concentration camps for people who are non-vax, there would be a whole bunch of vax niggas reporting their own family members just to get them in the camp. That's the kind of condition we're in. How do we get the people to get out of that mindset?
Brother, the point you make is so important, because that is the idea of believing the myth. This is still part of it. It's just another concept, because the stress that we're being put under is a negative stress. There's another type of pressure that we put on ourselves to become a better person. There are various types of things that can motivate us. Emotion, I see, as two different factors. You have an emotion that is anger, and anger is emotion out of control. But then you also have another emotion that could be called passion. And passion is emotion in control. And the reality that we face is that the stresses that we face goes back to survival. If you're worried about feeding your family and paying your rent and putting clothes on your back and the safety of your community, you don't have time to create and find that divine gift. And that concept of what you speak of, the God within, the divine, each and every one of us is born with that. Each and every one of us is born with a purpose in life that's different from everybody else's purpose. Two people might be doing the same thing, but the way you do it is different from the way they do it. And it's a beautiful thing. But when you're born under certain conditions, such as many that we're speaking of under stress, you're so busy just trying to find a way to get to the next day, you don't have time to focus on what your divine gift was, why you were brought to the planet. Each and every one of us was given an assignment. I would even say that assignment, you were brought into existence with already that assignment in place. And as an educator, my job was not to tell somebody what their gift was, but to facilitate the ability for that person to come to consciousness of what their gift is, to contribute to the world. But when you're dealing with an ice mentality, it's not about that. Because if you find your divine gift and they have not found their gift, that means that you will be in charge. You will be in control of yourself. And the first step in life towards that divine gift is self-knowledge. And when I say that, I don't just mean culture. I mean, who are you as an individual, as a human being? Your culture is important. Your culture is to you as water is to a fish. Your culture is very important. But if you don't realize that you're a fish in the water, the type of fish that you are in the water, then it don't make a difference how pure your water is. You ain't never going to understand what you're supposed to do. And that's the purpose of education. But as an educator, in the educational system in New York, I've come to realize that the educational system in the Western world is an edu business. It's about money. Test taking is a multi-billion-dollar business. There is no money in success. You get money when the children are failing. You get money for extra programs. You get money for summer school. So therefore, I've known teachers who have purposefully failed their children so that they could teach summer school so they and their family could go on vacation.
Wow.
I'm telling you evidence. I know this. I experienced this. There's money in failure. Schools, districts get money when children fail. Special reading programs, extra math programs. But if your classroom, like with me, I taught summer school very seldom. I didn't teach it much. And normally I taught other children. I never taught my own because my children passed. And they didn't pass because I was a super teacher. They passed because they were a super student and I knew how to teach students. My success isn't mine with them. Whatever success I may have was them. They were successful. People have mentioned, and I think you may have said it earlier, that the way in which I express things are very clear. They're visual. Well, I thank my children for that. It was my kindergarten children, my own biological children, that taught me how to talk to a 4- and 5-year-old. When I walked into a classroom to teach math or science to a 5-year-old, I could not assume that they knew what I was talking about. I could not even assume that they knew what the words I was using meant. So I have to start from foundation and build from there to create visuals, because the human mind works through visuals. The writing and the reading and all that comes later. The first step in literacy, in teaching a child how to read, is not teaching them how to read. The first skill in literacy for the learner is listening. That is why the oral tradition is so important. That's why reading books to children is so important. You're creating a mental vocabulary. And then after listening comes speaking. So when I read a book to a child, I'll ask a question. What do you think the main idea was with Ahine? What do you think Mufaro's beautiful daughter, the story of the African princess, was about? What kind of hairstyle did Mufaro's daughter have? Who was Mufaro? Because when I'm doing that now, I am connecting their neurons from listening with the ear to speaking, but the bridge between the two is their brain. Then you teach phonics, which is sounds, phonons. You teach the sounds of words. Mufaro, Mufaro. Then from phonons, you teach the script that represents the M, M, U, F, R, O. You teach the letters. And then you have them write the letters Mufaro's beautiful daughter, M-U-F-A-R-O apostrophe S. Those are the steps in literacy. But there's no money in listening and speaking. The money is in reading. So they push reading as the primary goal of literacy because there's money in buying books. There's money in buying paper and pen to write. But they're skipping the two most important steps in literacy, which don't cost money. You have one book that you read to the children. Then you ask questions. There's no money in that. But when you buy 30 books, there's money in that. When you buy 30 composition books, 30 pens or pencils, there's money in that. But when you're teaching children for the betterment of the civilization, it's not about money. It's about knowledge and wisdom. And so we're under a great deal of stress. And the way to do it is, as Malcolm said, make it plain, make it simple, so that the people understand what you're saying. Create visuals for them to be able to see with the third eye. Because when people say, oh, I see what you're talking about, they're not talking about your visual eyes.
Right.
They're talking about your third eye.
Yes.
When they say to you, oh, I hear what you're saying, they're not talking about their ears. They're talking about their third ear. You see, we have 3 nostrils. We have the 2 nostrils, and then we have the third nostril, that's your spiritual nostril. We have 2 skins. We have the skin that we feel, but the spiritual skin. When young people say, yo, man, I feel you. They're not talking about your skin.
Right.
They're talking about their spiritual skin. Okay, you have 2 tongues. You have the tongue that you taste with, but you also have a spiritual tongue. And by the way, you don't just have 5 senses, you have 6 senses, because thinking is a sense. We have to teach our people not just the truth and not just facts. We have to allow our people to know themselves. Who are you? Who are you? Not in relationship to Africa. Who are you in regards to the creator that you are? You are the creator having a human experience. You don't have to look for your creator outside of yourself. You don't have to look for the creator within yourself. You want to see God? Go in the bathroom and look in the mirror. And if you want to bring your Bible in, your Quran, your Torah in, read the part of your holy book that says that you are born in the image of your creator. And then look in the mirror. And what are you looking at? You're looking at the image. You're looking at your image. Remember what your holy book told you. But if you are the image of the creator, when you're looking into the mirror, you're looking at your image in the mirror, but you're looking at yourself. So if each and every one of us is born in the image of our creator, what we're looking at is the creator having a human experience. And every holy book says it. Yet for some reason, we don't believe it.
Dude, I'm overly excited. Like I got this big cloud of excitement as I'm sitting here listening and really just looking at the online guests and how excited they are. I want to read a couple things. Layla says, I am so proud. This was confirmation. I needed to hear Dr. Kaba speak today. Janice Wakefield says, the community is really not raising gods and goddesses. The community is raising people to live in fear. So grateful for the professor who is speaking truth and who is actually taking time to develop us as a community, as a nation, and as a whole. Most of the teachers within the community are doing this for approval to fulfill their ego. We need more men teachers and professors like Professor Kamene. And I mean,
please,
it goes
brother,
on.
Can I tell you something?
Yes,
please,
sir.
Can I tell you something about that last comment?
Yes, sir.
I give great credit to Professor John Henry Clark for much of my intellectual and educational shape of how I present myself. I first met Professor Clark when I was very young. I was 12 and a half. As I got more mature, I became closer with him, and I consider him my teacher. Much of what I say, as I've shaped it from my perspective, came from his influences. Professor Clark beat the hell out of my ego when I was a teenager. He told me, he said, look, man, if you're getting in this for money or hand clap, get out now. If you're getting in this to depend on your people to support you financially, get out now. To do what we do, you have to have a passion. It ain't about you. When you mature as a man or a woman. Words like I, me, and mine become we, us, and ours. When, I often tell people, before I was married with children, I used to walk around with shopping bags, say Shirt King, Mad Hatter.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got married with children, my shopping bags say kids are us, toys are us, babies are us. The maturity, what was the breakthrough for the human family that brought them to a level of consciousness and was the precursor to building the pyramids, was the act of sharing. To be able to take what was possessively yours and being willing to share it with somebody else. Realizing that even though you are not physically in possession of that thing that you value, it's still yours when someone else has it. And if we could just see that, when you go back to, are we too nice to them? We are a humane people. We are humane. We love people. We love life. We love nature. That's not to say that everything is wonderful, because some of us ain't like that. Even when we were in Africa amongst ourselves, it wasn't like that. And so I realize, I'm not trying to paint no rosy picture that everything was just all beautiful. We had our problems, but the law we lived by was ma'at. We knew that truth and justice, balance and harmony, order and arrangement. We're living in a world now that is based in chaos. It's been like this since the Western world has taken over. It has been nothing but wars. Look at history. I've taught history. Look at Kush Kemet history. You study dynasties. And in these dynasties, great civilizations existed and things were done. Now, when you get in 1492 and on, your timeline becomes wars. Spanish and French were at war. Spanish and Dutch, Dutch and English, English and French. Then you get up into the 1900s and you got World War I, World War II, the Korean conflict. And then when it wasn't a hot war, it was a cold war with Russia. And then it was Islam that we were at war with. And now look what's going on. Now there's a new conflict coming up. They know nothing but war, murder, and mayhem. The evidence, their history. Just look around us. And this is the world that we are bequeathing to our children. And now we're going to kick back and wonder what's wrong with the children. Well, what's wrong with the children? We're what's wrong with the children. The adults. But we're not acting humane.
We do that a lot, though. Why is that? We will be the worst of the worst, and then later on we're holy and sanctified, and then say what's wrong with our kids. No, you did that. You created that in them.
Yes.
It's something that I see that more in our people than anywhere else. I seen a 46-year-old great grandmother. Girl, you had your first kids when you was 13, was out there acting a fool. And now you want to wonder why your son's got, 8 baby mamas. I mean, that's a true story right there. But I'm just saying, we do that. How do we get us out of this matrix mindset that we are in? What's the solution?
To realize it's a matrix. The first thing is self-realization. I have good news, I have bad news. The good news is we are going to make it to the promised land. The bad news is a lot of us ain't going to make it.
I knew you were gonna say that. Everybody can't go.
No, everybody can't go. That and it's just by the nature of the conditions that we live under. I don't know who can go and who cannot. I'm not going to say if you have this or you have that, you will go. I'm not giving the qualifications. What I am going to say is that you will get there if you choose to go. That's the only requirement that exists to make it to the promised land, that you want to go and that you're going to implement the plan to get there. And I don't care who you are. You could be someone, like I say, who waits for the light to turn red to come out and ask for money. You could be a doctor, a lawyer. You could work for FedEx, nurse, a teacher, student. The road to the promised land is not determined by any outside concept except for yourself. You choose. When you think in terms of, you hear the biblical concept of God's chosen people, it's not that God chose the people, it's that the people chose God.
Mm-hmm.
And when you realize that you're in a matrix, and when you realize that you want to get something done, then you're going to get Harriet Tubman on people. You might even get Nat Turner on people. You might get Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. I'm not going to tell you who you're going to become, but the one thing that you will realize is that we have work to do. We have a divine purpose. And that there are those that came before us that put everything they had on the line, and sometimes even their life, to get us there. We have no right to stop now. If they could do what they did under the conditions that they lived, I got it made, family. I'm blessed. Considering what they had to go through. After we have this meeting, we will all go into our own directions. I will have the honor and the privilege of being at Roots 101 this evening from 6 to 9, where I will be able to share time, precious time, with our people. If this was 200 years ago, wasn't nobody going no place but back on the plantation. In fact, we wouldn't even be doing this. We'd be on the plantation working.
Exactly.
I am blessed. I am so fortunate. And I thank the Creator within every day for allowing us. And I thank you for this opportunity to talk to the community. And I thank our community for tuning in, because you see, family, the most precious thing that you have when all is said and done, with everything that we've talked about, with everything that we value and don't value, to me, the most valuable thing you have is time. Time is the most valuable thing we have. When you see somebody's obituary, you see a date of their birth, you see a date of their transcendence and transition, but what separates their birth from their transition is a dash. And that dash is what you did in the time that the Creator gave you. So my question is, when all is said and done, and your great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren look back on what you did, what they gonna say about your dash? What they gonna say you did with your time?
That's right.
Did you waste it? Because you know something, fam? There will never be another January 25th, 2022. You can lose all your money and make more money.
That's right.
Your house can burn down and you can build another house.
That's right.
You can get all the sneakers. You can always get back something. But the one thing you can't get back is time. So how you spend it is very important. So I value you and I coming together. I value the community that's tuned into this program, that you have chosen on a Saturday morning to tune into this program. I respect it. And the one thing I tell people, and the one thing I've lived by, I will never waste your time, and I will never let anybody waste mine.
There you go.
Procrastination, to put off today what you should do until tomorrow, procrastination is the greatest thief of time.
Mm.
Ain't nobody stealing my time. I want my dash to matter, not just to the community, but first and foremost to myself. So this time that we spend right now talking is valuable to me. The time we spent on the radio prior to this is very valuable. It is the greatest gift I could ever give you. No matter how much money I might give, the greatest gift I could give you is my time.
Yes, sir. That's right.
That is the most precious thing I have.
Man, I tell you what, this has been nothing short of a powerful, powerful show, and I'm just ecstatic to have had you here and to have you in this realm, in this life, in this day and age. You know, this has been nothing but powerful. I want you, please, to go ahead before we get off here, to go ahead and give your contact information, you know, where people can find you once again, and to talk about the events that you're here to speak about once again.
Thank you, my brother, for this opportunity to be able to share with the community, because it goes back to evidence and just developing a relationship. I have a multi-pronged approach to what I'm doing, understanding social media and technology. I encourage us to go to my Instagram page. I'm at Kaba Kamene, KABAKAMENE. I use my Instagram page as my community bulletin board. I come on and I talk like the past couple of presentations that I've done. My son and I work together. He's with me here. And we've put up different bits of what I've spoken about over the past 2 days here in Louisville. I use it as my community bulletin board to let people know where I am, what I'm doing, what my interests are. I use it to let folk know about my webinars and my webinars. But my Instagram page is my means to communicate with the community. My webinars, quick webinars, are about a half hour in length. And what they do is they teach teaching methodologies, different ways to teach. There's a difference between what you teach and how you teach. There's a difference between content, which is what you teach, and intent, which is how you teach it. There is a Moorish proverb that says, after you learned what you set out to learn, what you learned you can put to the side, because it was the process of learning it that was the true education.
Mm-hmm.
My webinars are meant to teach us how to teach and also how we should have been taught. So it's not just for teachers, it's for anyone that wants to get a sense of methodologies of teaching. That's my webinars. Every Tuesday, I come out with a webinar. Every Tuesday. And on my Instagram page, you can register for it, or you can go to my website. My website is www.kabakamene.com. www.kabakamene.com. And it is on my website that you can get my free e-course and my free study guide. Because Dr. Clark once told me, you may not get to your destination, but if you leave the proper roadmap, those that come behind you will. So my study guide is my roadmap. It is a compilation of my life's work put in outline form. It's about 44 pages. Go to my website, kabakamene.com. It's free. It's my most valuable work. That's why it's free. Because the greatest things in life are priceless. There's no price on that study guide. So you go to my website. You'll be able to also get access to different types of things that I have, my DVDs and my writings, other important information as it relates to my website, www.kabakamene.com. Every first Sunday of the month, I do a webinar on my third book, Shabaka Stone. Every first Sunday of the month, I do a webinar. Every third Friday of the month, I do a webinar on the original Americans who were Africans. Because we got to drop the evidence on this. I take you back and trace it right through. So my webinars and my webinars, you have access to it through the link in my bio on my Instagram page. And then I have 3 books that I've written. The book on the architect of America's African Studies Program, Professor William Leo Hansberry of Howard University. He wrote the first 3 curriculum on teaching African history that never existed before. That was my first book. Intellectual Libation to the Architect of America's African Studies Program. My second book is Spirituality Before Religions. Spirituality is unseen science. Science is seen spirituality. And then my third and final, this book that I have here is Shabaka Stone, an African theory on the origin and continuing development of the cosmic universe. We have to understand there's a pattern in the tabernacle, as above, so below. The same way the cosmos came into being is how our sun came into being, is how our earth came into being, how organic life came into being, and how humanity came into being. And when you understand the pattern in the tabernacle, then it goes back to when you said, how do we get out of this matrix? Understand the pattern in the tabernacle. Break the cycle of chaos and go back to order. And understand that our lives, the earth life, the cosmic life, is based on Ma'at, truth, justice, balance, harmony, order, arrangement, and reciprocity. And understand that this is science, not emotion. When I tell you, will go around, come around. You shall reap what you sow. And Dr. King was right when he quoted, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards Ma'at. We have the DNA of the pyramid builders in us. I have a lesson plan that's titled, The Hands That Built the Pyramids Built the White House. We have the DNA of the plantation dweller. We have the DNA of those who live in the project. I grew up in a project. And we have the DNA of those who are about to move into the promised land. I got good news and I got bad news. Good news is we gonna make it to the promised land. The bad news is a lot of us are not gonna make it according to the priorities that we have developed in our life. We deserve to be in the promised land, but family, what are you gonna choose to do? Every generation makes it better for the generations to come. I don't do what I do for my ancestors. They already did what they did for me. I do what I do through my ancestors for the children and even those yet to be born. So please, family, support the work that we're doing. Support my work, and I will support the work that will continue to develop us in our community. And not just me. I reach out to all of the scholars that are doing this work, all of the great scholars that are educating us, loving us, and wanting to see us live to a better day. And to my family, to those in this program, all responsible for bringing me onto this program, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It is as much an honor for me to be with you, because the work you're doing is the work of our Creator and our ancestors. You are enlightening us and bringing us forward. And I want to thank you for this opportunity. And I thank the community for tuning in. I look forward to the future. Keep on keeping on. It ain't over till we win. Solar power is going to be the future wealth of the planet. Teach the babies. They are children of the sun.
Awesome. And tonight you're going to be at Roots 101 at what time?
We will be at Roots 101 The banquet and all that is engaged in this evening starts about 6 p.m. in the evening. And it is going to be a great event that brings forward concepts that we need to talk about as we move forward. It's going to be my presentation tonight is entitled Black Autonomy. What is it to have autonomy? What do we mean when we say autonomy? What is it? How do we get it? And much of what we talked about in this discussion is wrapped up in that. But we're going to take it to the next level because I'm going to show the community a few things. So I look forward to this evening. And let me tell you all something else. Those of you who live in Louisville or whoever come, listen, y'all got to get to Roots 101. That African American Museum is powerful. That is a place to be. If you're a teacher, you need to bring your classes to walk around that museum. You need to get to meet the Collins who have set that museum up for the community. I am thoroughly impressed with Roots 101. And I thank the Black Panther Party of Louisville, Kentucky, and to my sister, General Ahamara, for all the work that she's done and continues to do, and all the staff that made this Black Power Week possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Man, I want to speak real quick, and then John, I want you to have the last word if you don't mind. You know, another thing you said, time being so valuable, and there was something else that you said as well, and that's choice. You know, I think freedom of choice being just as valuable, and I think choice with you know, what you're saying about Black autonomy will be part of, you know, I can assume would be part of your conversation as well, because we have to make those it's about the choices that we make, you know, that will determine, you know, the choice you make today determines the next 5 years of your life, you know, and we have to, as a people, start making better choices. You know, we pointed out on our show a couple shows ago with the marijuana and the fact that this day, and I didn't even think about that until it was pointed out, there's no seeds in the weed no more. That is genetically modified crap that you are now smoking, and we're smoking more of it now than we ever did before, which dampens your creative mindset. Hey, I'm not gonna say smoking a little bit of weed is a big issue, but smoking a lot of it is, especially when it's fake weed. So, but you know, again, the choices that we make, and to me, being just as valuable as time as well. So with that being said, Brother John, you want to close this out, family?
Peace, brothers. Definitely, Brother Professor, it's always an honor. I met you before, like I said in earlier of the part of the show. And I don't know if you remember when I met you here the first time you came. I remember talking to you about doing a tour to Kemet. I remember we talked about you doing a tour, taking some people on a tour to Kemet. And again, so it's an honor. I know where you stand. I knew that you stood on the shoulder of Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. Definitely, it's an honor speaking with you. And I will say this, most important for those who are listening. We got to learn how to celebrate our people today instead of waiting for them to die and then calling them ancestors. We got to understand how to pass this knowledge down to our youth, because the information is dying out. People ain't reading books like they used to anymore. So thank you, Ahamara. Thank you, Layla, for bringing this brother to this city, to Louisville, to spread this information, because it's highly, highly needed. I honor you. I definitely have a lot of respect for those sisters. And I'm sure you know them as well. So thank you, brother, for coming to Louisville, and thank you for coming on our show and kicking it with us and dropping some serious jewels. I appreciate you, man, and wish you well in your endeavor and your journey.
Absolutely. And with that being said, folks, yes, sir. Yes, sir. With that being said, folks, this has been another episode of the Tipping Point After Show. We will see you next week, same time, same place. We'll start out on the radio on WLOUonline.com, as well as locally here on 104.7 FM and 1350 AM. Just the same online at the Tipping Point Radio on Facebook Live, as well as the Tipping Point Morning Show on YouTube. Same place, same time, 9 a.m. next Saturday, and the after show at 10 a.m. Professor, you are welcome anytime you want to come through and vibe with us on any conversation whatsoever. You got a new anything coming out that you need to get to the people, please let us know, and we will be the first to put it out there. We appreciate you. We love you. And we will see all of you next week.
Thank you. Peace.
You are listening to The Tipping Point Show with your host, Mr. Just Ask Joe, John Yeah. Right here on WLOU. Stream it live on Facebook and WLOUonline.com. And now, The Tipping Point Show.